Hi, I'm Tricia Morris and welcome to the assembly workshop for your Daffodils Card Kit. You'll for sure need either a printed or a visual copy of the assembly instructions. You'll need your card kit, which comes with cut-aparts, card panels, embellishments, and envelopes to make 12 cards. Your favorite 12-inch guillotine trimmer, mine is by Fiskars, and an accordion pocket file or some space in which you can organize all of your piles for the 3 different sets of cards we'll be making. So let's grab our kit and take the printed cut-aparts out of the bag and we'll get started with those. You'll find a total of 3 pieces of cut-aparts. 2 of them are 8.5 by 11 and the other is a 4 1/4 by 11. Let's begin with this 8.5 by 11 that says "Be happy, be bright, be you" in the upper left corner. We'll place it vertically into the trimmer and separate this into 3 separate columns. Next, I'll rotate this piece and trim these into individual strips. Now let's take all of the strips that have the brown background and we will file those into the first pocket of our accordion pocket file, pocket A, or otherwise in our first pile. And then we have 2 additional greetings that say "Thinking of you" and "Happy Birthday." Those also go into pocket A. And then we have these 2 narrow strips with flowers, also pocket A. Now we have this piece that has 2 smaller elements and then 1 larger greeting. I'm going to just trim twice to separate all of those. The "Hope your special day is fabulous" will be filed into pocket B. And now we have these little guys. You have a couple of options for trimming off the end here. I prefer, since it's so small, to place my piece more in the midsection of my trimmer so I can make sure everything's aligned. I can see it a little more easily. Maybe you can. Let's go to this part here. There. Now I can see that it's level with the line and do a nice job of trimming this last piece. These 2 little pieces go into pocket C. Next, I'll trim this piece into individual sections. Be very careful when you get to this point. There is no line separating these 2 elements, so be sure to move all the way down until you see the next registration mark. These 2 pieces go in pocket A. This last sentiment, "Our thoughts are with you," pocket C. And 1 last strip. All 3 of these pieces go in pocket B. Turn this into a square. Pocket B. Next we'll move on to the remaining 8.5 by 11. You'll notice a lot of really small pieces on this sheet, and I just beg your patience through this because the effort at the end is worth it, and I've put in a request for larger card pieces for next month. Once again, be careful not to trim these into 2 separate pieces. File in pocket A. "Your kindness" goes in pocket C. And here's a "thank you" that needs to be trimmed further. That will go in C. 2 nice large pieces here to separate. File in B. Now we have 2 identical strips, and the way we've set these up is so that you can place the green portion of the strip on your left, trim off the waist, and then trim our individual squares. You'll also notice there are 2 registration marks here, and those are intentionally placed, so be sure you cut on both of them. I'm going to keep all of the small squares in a separate pile on my workspace rather than dumping them into the file. This piece goes in pocket C, and then repeat that for the other strip. This one just gets trimmed in half. And both of these get filed in pocket B. Now here you'll want to hang on to this piece of scrap and trim off the smaller pieces from the end. All right, these 2 sweet rectangles, pocket A. Deepest sympathy goes in C. And the 2 plain rectangles, A. Finally, one last strip. Once I get here, I will rotate to trim the long scrap from the ends. And then rotate it back. Alright, the piece like this and the sentiment both go in pocket B. Now we have a square. Also pocket B. The Sending Sunshine Your Way, C. And then the Enjoy, finally. Both of these go in B. And that concludes the trimming of the cut-aparts. We just have a small pile of scraps to get rid of. I'm taking everything out of the kit, and I'll just put the envelopes back in there to keep them separated since we don't need them till we mail. Look for and identify the 4 gold panels. They should measure 6 by 6. And also note that in the color names, this is yellow, this is gold. So if you identify those and keep them straight, that's always going to be helpful. These are going to need to be trimmed. I'll take 2 at a time here since I have my nice trimmer. And just trim them at 3 inches to turn them into 2 3 by 6 panels. All of these panels will go into pocket B. I think that's it for the trimming. Let's go ahead and get our score pal. All right, the first panel we're going to work with will be for card set A, and this is a 4 1/4 by 11 inch gold panel. There are a lot of score lines for this panel because of the unique card structure, but they're very easy to make. Just make sure you get them all. All right, starting with 1 inch, 2 3/4, 3 3/4, 5 1/2, 7 1/4, 8 1/4, and 10. And all of those scores go on the same side of the paper, no flipping required. You'll repeat that for the remaining 3 gold panels. We have one more step we need to perform with these before we file them, but let's set them aside for now. And we're going to take our larger white card bases. These will be for set B. And the size of these panels is 6 1/4 by 11. We'll score twice. 3 1/4 and 7 3/4. Oh, I just love the smoothness of this beautiful paper. And then repeat that for the remaining card bases. These will be used in card set B. These yellow panels actually end up making a smaller card, so we'll score them horizontally at 3 1/2 and repeat for all of them. Take these along with the brown smaller panels, those will nest right onto these cards, and that will be in set C. You should also have some green panels, those go into card set A. Let's move on to the final prep work for our gold card bases. You will need a cutting mat, craft knife, ruler. I have 2 different knives here to choose from. Both of them I love very much. This one was actually a gift at the last retreat we had, as well as this awesome custom-made club scrap specific cutting mat. It cuts our paper much better than any other mat. And of course the ruler. For this we're also going to be using one of those green panels as a template. So what we need to do is make a slit in the center of this score line that matches the width of the green panel. So to find that center, let's go ahead and rest our ruler along the edge of the center score line. This is the one that's been made at 5 1/2 inches. So I'm centering it left to right, and to find that, it's going to be 2 1/8 of an inch on each side of the ruler. And then I'll center the panel onto the ruler as well. So that's going to put me at, looks like 1 3/8 from each side. So now I know that the ruler, the panel, everything is centered. I'll take a pencil and mark just on either side of my green panel. So the width of my slit needs to match, just slightly larger than the panel. Okay, so now I've done that. I'm just going to temporarily close this and duplicate the placement of those marks on the remaining panel. So I can just see where that pencil mark is, and I will duplicate that. Do that for the remaining card bases. And I'm just going to make sure that I mark it on the bump of the score. Now to make this slit, I found a real easy way to do it. Rest the ruler up onto the edge of that bump. You'll feel it kind of stop. And then I'll just simply take my knife, start at the first pencil mark, press firmly, and bring it to the second pencil mark. Then rotate it so that I'm comfortable. So if you're right-handed, all of this would be reversed. So I flipped my panel around, and I'm gonna cut along the other side of that bump. That leaves me just 2 little slits to make along those pencil lines. And now I've removed a slot from the middle of my panel, of my card base actually. And then I'll repeat that for the remaining 3 cards. That concludes all the prep work, and now it's just time to get busy making our cards. Take everything out of pocket A, make sure you get all the parts and pieces. And we'll begin by decorating our green panels with the cut-aparts that we have included here. All right, I kind of have things prepped here. For the beautiful card panels, I'll take some of this adorable gingham ribbon and just simply wrap it around the top edge of the card. And it's important that it's at the top because of the way this card is finally assembled. You'll just need to have some room here to work with. So I'm also using a pretty small amount of ribbon. I used a lot of this gingham. I thought it was so adorable with the collection. Once I get my little bow made, I will trim the ribbon tails at an angle. With that done, I'll adhere this to the green panel, and I'll have an equal margin along the left, right, and top edges. I also need to use 2 of these adorable craft banner tags for this card, and I'll be using the kind of the framed cut apart. I'll just center that on there. And I'll take like, I don't know, an inch worth of ribbon. I'm going to do this 4 times. I'll identify which way the ribbon wants to fold itself over. One way will be easier than the other, and that's the way I want it to go. So I'll fold the ribbon in half and then just bring it up to the edge of the tag here. I didn't even bother removing the punched circle. And then I'll staple this ribbon to the tag. You can prep all the tags in the same manner using the other 2 smaller pieces that are designed to fit. All right, we'll set aside these panels with their respective tags. And I will attach this tag to the opening sort of at an angle, the framed opening in the cut apart. And then nest it onto the green card base. Lovely. Okay, now we're going to have some fun. With these unique card bases, make sure that the bump of the score goes on the inside of the fold, and go ahead and just fold in on every single one of those score lines. Now position this piece on your work surface so that it wants to fold inward, and then take the 1-inch fold from at the bottom and fold up on that 1-inch tab. It's going to make a tab here. I'll use my handy grid ruler to find the center once again, so it'll read 2 1/8 on each side. And then what we want to do is attach our green piece right to that flap. So I will put adhesive on the bottom edge of that green panel, I don't want any adhesive any other location. And then I'm going to rest this panel at the center. It's going to read again 1 3/8 is my center. Okay. Now, what we'll do is thread this right through the slit that we made and essentially close the card so that the other 1-inch tab at the top will be adhered to the front side of the green panel, sort of sandwiching it between those two tabs. To make this easy, I will add the adhesive right to the tab on the card base, and then just bring it down and set it right on top, literally folding the card in half. So what will happen now is when I bring this down, it forms a box shape. Isn't that clever? And you see how those are the two 1-inch tabs sandwiching the green panel. Now Jacqueline designed, so this is one way that the card can be flattened, but this way will not fit into the envelope. This is another way the card can be flattened, but sometimes the things at the top might get trapped. To me, the best way to close the card for mailing is to do it this way. All right, so now I have some panels that will fit here. So this says have a beautiful day, and now I'm going to take the thinking of you panel, and that will fit right here. Beneath that, I have another narrow panel with these decorative daffodils on it, and make sure that the stems are coming up from the bottom and not the top. That's upside down. This is right side up. And do not, under any circumstances, ask me why I know this. It's a cautionary tale based purely on fiction. There we go. Now I have this darling card, fully decorated, and with all of that fun functionality. So again, this is one way to do it. This is my preferred way to do it. And this assembly for the remaining card structures in this set is exactly the same. Just have your handy little ruler ready and follow it step by step. Now once these two versions are assembled, you can take the remaining tag and add some adhesive and place it right here kind of at an angle. Even gives you a little spot to maybe sign a greeting or put a person's name. It would be really sweet there. So there we go. There's your standing card. I noticed that it works well to kind of fiddle with a little bit until the paper sort of takes its shape and then it stands independently on its own. And that completes set A. Let's take everything out of pocket B for our next batch of cards. We'll begin by simply folding the white card bases into a gatefold card with uneven on the inside of the fold. Here's a little time-saving trick for you when you have a lot of folds to make. What I usually do is when completed, I will stack everything together and then burnish all of the folds at the same time. Notice how nice they are laying right now, and I just had to do it once for each side. Okay, so these cards are set up so that, remember when we cut those 6x6 gold panels in half? That's what happened. We were able to create the panels for all of these cards. All right, we'll start this card with a simple wrap of this raffia around the edge of one of these gold panels. And I'm going to do this. It's just cut a length that's a little longer than the panel itself. And then make sure it's, maybe a half inch-ish away from the edge. And then I'll tape the little tails of the raffia around to the back. Then I'll take a second piece and tie it onto the raffia here and just trim the end. Quick and easy way Then let's attach this to the right flap of the card base, centered within that flap. All right, then we can take this other gold panel and we'll just simply adhere it to this flap. We'll take this corresponding cut apart that should fit within that area and center that. I'm eyeballing this against my better judgment. Normally I would use a grid ruler to help, but this is the fun part, and I think this is so clever of Jacqueline to design it this way. But this is a sentiment for the outside of the card, and it's designed to fit and align itself with this milk jug here, and also to be held in place by the strip of raffia on the right side. So essentially when Jacqueline and I are designing these cards, I come up with the structure itself, and then she, of course, is creating the artwork for the collection, and then sort of figures out how all of these pieces will work together. And this was her clever idea for using the raffia as a closure on the right edge of the card base. I just think it's the sweetest thing ever. And then I'll take another square daffodil cut apart, making sure, of course, it's right side up, that the stem is coming up from the bottom. And I learned this, that you want to make sure you have it in far enough so that the flap of the card, left flap, covers this. So you get a little treat on the inside here. And then we'll finish the card with congratulations on your wonderful news, which, you know, this could be used for a new job, an engagement, retirement, new member of the family on its way. So here we go, just tuck that right in there, and it's just a super cute way to put together this card. And then we have the materials to make one more just like this. Now for the next card in this set, I will use my grid ruler to help me out with something over here. We'll begin by adhering the gold panel to the right flap of the card. And then I will get my grid ruler out, and we'll be attaching this narrow strip. And what I want it to do is I want it centered and equidistant from the bottom, left, and right edges. So it looks to me like if I do this 1/4 of an inch from the edge, when this panel is closed, you see how the reveal is exactly the same on all 4 sides. So this is one of the things I really appreciate about how Jacqueline designs and puts just so much effort into these cards. Okay, this is 1/4 of an inch. I'm not sure if I said 1/2 or 1/4, but she just thinks so in depth about the final look and does what she can to create them in such a way that they just fall together beautifully. Sometimes there are a lot of small pieces to make that happen, but I think it's worth it in this case. Now I'll add the enjoy to this, and I'm kind of going to do the same thing. I want to make sure that this panel is equidistant, so centered, and 1/4 of an inch in alignment with the other piece. You can see how lovely all of this looks. Then what I forgot to do here is my plan is to staple a piece of folded gingham ribbon. So I'm just going to pull the adhesive away a little bit. I should be fine. Staple this to the edge of this panel. Let me see if I can get that stapler in there. That's what I get for relying on my memory, not my instructions. Okay, very good. Then finally, we've included these just darling etched, they're like laser etched coconut shell buttons. I mean, the detail on these is just extraordinary. So I'm going to take some bookbinding glue that's been placed into a needle tip applicator, and I'll put a pretty generous amount of bookbinding glue on the back of this and just set it right on top of the stapler. That's why I have like plenty of glue here so that it penetrates through all the layers and secures that button in place. In my original sample, it did exactly that. It's on there quite well. And you repeat that whole process for the other card. Of course, the interior greeting for this one is, hope your special day is fabulous. So I'll quickly add that there. And I'll make the other card. There they all are. That would be set B. And let's move on to set C and get all of the goods out of our accordion pocket file. All right, let's begin by simply folding these cards in half. Remember, the bump of the score is on the inside of the fold. And before you make your final crease, I always like to just double check that the corners are aligning perfectly. Even though you've scored them, never just assume that it's perfect. And now that I have them creased, I'll stack and give it one swoop with my bone folder. And they're a nice crisp fold. Now for our first card, remember when we set aside the pile of tiny squares? And I just did that so I wouldn't have to sort through everything. And you'll notice too that there are different colors of frames on them, so you can just distribute them accordingly to your card base. Now, Jacqueline's original vision for these cards was that I could adhere all of these squares willy-nilly to the brown panel, and I'm just not a willy-nilly kind of a girl. I apologize. That said, I did use my grid ruler to help with placement and positioning, so I'll show you how I did that. I will place this so that the edge of my card aligns itself between a 1/2 inch and 5/8. So it's not on a line on the grid, it's in between two of them. Then all I have to do is center these elements and separate them by an 1/8 of an inch. Now I think, let's just regroup here. I'll make this the bottom of the card. So when I'm distributing elements equally, I start with the center element first. I think it's gonna have to go this way. So I'm gonna rest it against the ruler's edge and then drop it down, and that's exactly center. And then I'll go to the right, and that's just 1 cube away. Willy-nilly, I can't possibly. Okay. Now I could perhaps just scoot my ruler around and then place mark the placement of my first piece so that it's an 1/8 of an inch away. And then maybe even eyeball the placement of the remaining two. Because right now I have a precedent set, or I've got my spacing all resolved, and these should all find a happy home. Then for the sentiment on this, we'll do this one as a get well soon. And again, you can place this anywhere you like, but I just really liked it just tucked along the bottom edge here and popped up a little bit. So I grabbed my awesome foam adhesive circles. I love these. Just cut them in half. And when I attach them to whatever I'm working with, I try to attach them so the pull tab is extending past the edge of the element. So all I have to do is just grab them. Isn't that easy? And then I'll position this right there. To finish, simply attach it to your card base and repeat for the second card that will be just like it. On the inside of this card, we'll put sending sunshine your way. Okay, now we'll move on to the second set of cards. Be sure you do some prep work before you adhere this to the card base. We'll begin with this green strip, and we'll use our ruler to make sure we attach that strip level. I'm going to go with 1 1/4 inches. I think maybe 1 inch up from the bottom edge of the card. Oops, my ruler slipped there. Okay, then I'm going to take this piece of raffia, fold it in half, and then I'm going to make a knot sort of in the center of this half. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to make a loop and then drop the tail through the loop. And now I've got this cute little knot in my raffia. If you want, you can definitely trim the loop, because all we're going to do is take some tape and swing these tails. I'm going to separate them a little bit and wrap them around to the back of the panel and secure it. You can tell this is a very scientific effort. Sweet. Okay, then we have one more of these darling little craft banner shaped tags. I'll attach this to the lower corner of the card. And what I'm trying to avoid is any point on this tag intersecting any point on the border. And the reason for that is I'd like to avoid a tangent. Okay, so notice none of the points are in contact with any item. And then I'll attach this with another foam adhesive circle that I've cut in half. And I like them because they're not super, super high, creating a lot of unnecessary dimension that causes problems with mail service. Finally, let's finish this off. I'm taking my bookbinding glue again and this adorable laser etched button. And let's kind of attach this near the knot. I just think that is absolutely the sweetest thing. I always have use, unfortunately, for those sympathy cards. It seems almost weekly I'm digging for one, so we like to provide at least one or two of these to you every month, and this Daffodils collection is really perfect for the theme. And then it's basically the same type of assembly for the other card, but this time I'll be using it with the gingham ribbon. And there you have your final two cards for set C. This is a beautiful set. I really love just the smaller size. They're perfect for just writing those little notes that are going to be really special. Well, thanks for joining me on this card making extravaganza. We certainly have a gorgeous set of greeting cards here, and all for the incredible, unbelievable price of $16.95 a month as a Club Scrap member. We'll ship a kit to you every month. You can make the 12 cards right along with me in my video tutorials. So be sure to subscribe to our channel by clicking on the subscribe below. Give me a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time in class.